It's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. These are the stories in boxing that have my attention on August the 24th, 2012. First, there's a huge fight taking place in Germany this weekend between Arthur Abraham and Robert Stieglitz. Now, a boxing insider, in fact, he was scheduled to fight Stieglitz. He's the man who beat James the Gale. He is unbeaten George Groves. Has an opinion on this fight. I always like to see what other fighters think before rendering my own opinion. Here is Groves' opinion. He says it's really a hard one to predict, and the fight could go a number of ways. But I believe that Stieglitz has the tools to pull off an upset here, even in Berlin. No one stops Arthur Abraham, but Stieglitz might be able to stop him from getting started, overwhelm him with his barrages. For me, it's Stieglitz on points. Now let me just quickly make a point. Stieglitz is one of the premier combination punchers in boxing. But there's a price to pay for being a combination puncher. Show me a combination puncher, and I'll show you a guy who has an exit strategy, right? Because when you're a combination puncher and you're in there throwing long combinations, you really do need to do something to protect yourself from getting countered, because you're so offensive that you're leaving yourself open for punches from the other puncher. So when you look at great combination punchers like a Ray Leonard back in the day, Ray Leonard had great upper body movement, right? He could swivel on his hips. He didn't have to move his feet. You threw on Ray Leonard, and Ray Leonard was able to literally just lean his head back like his fan. Vitaly Klitschko does, and Klitschko considers Leonard to be his all-time favorite fighter, right? Leonard also could do things like bend to the side. In other words, he could bend at the waist, and he had the reflexes. So he could come in, throw a combination, right? Literally be all the way in the trenches. Then, when his opponent did something, Ray didn't even have to run away. He didn't even have to back up. I'll give you another example of great combination punching. Manny Pacquiao against Oscar De La Hoya, right? Pacquiao's masterful in that fight at throwing long combinations. But understand, Pacquiao first gets gets Oscar De La Hoya on his back foot, right? De La Hoya is literally up on the ropes, helpless. Then when Pacquiao digs in on long combinations, he jumps to the side. Then he opens up the tool chest on De La Hoya, right? Understand too, Pacquiao has great feet. Certainly he did then. So as as De La Hoya takes a step forward, Pacquiao could literally jump back, be out of range. Now let's talk about Robert Stieglitz. Robert Stieglitz is an advanced fighter. He has more hand speed than Carl Froch, right? Quite frankly, when he's on his game, he can move better than Carl Froch, right? He throws long combinations. He even plays the angles. While he can't fight inside, he can tie you up inside. And when you watch a Stieglitz fight, it's interesting to see how effortlessly he's able to put his shoulder on your chest, right? Stieglitz is also the kind of advanced fighter who knows the angles of your punches to the point where he can get close enough to you where he can drop his hands because he knows from that angle you can't hit him, right? The problem with Stieglitz inside is that he can't be offensive. That's why I say he can't fight inside, right? He cannot be offensive inside. He's not a guy who shortens up his punches. So he gets inside yours and then can still do work like an Andre Ward or a Bernard Hopkins, right? Stieglitz, in my opinion, should be able to win this fight against Abraham on his back foot. If he can just keep the fight in the middle of the ring, throw combinations, and keep Abraham, who needs to set his feet to throw power punches and who has a problem hitting a moving target, all Stieglitz has to do is keep moving like Andre Durrell did, like George Groves did against James DeGale, right? I believe the Groves who fought DeGale beats Abraham. The Groves who fought Sierra would not, right? What Stieglitz needs to do is look at what Groves did to DeGale, what Durrell did to Abraham, and duplicate those fights, right? If he's able to do that, he should be able to win a decision. Here's the catch. Robert Stieglitz doesn't have a great exit strategy. He's too fond of his front foot. He's that fighter who likes to throw combinations, he likes to fight, but he doesn't like to back away too much. He gets caught up in the moment. It cost him against Libredo Andrade, right? Where he's throwing combinations, he just gets caught up in the moment, he gets caught up in the fight. It's hard to tell a fighter not to fight. He likes to hit, he likes to be in the battle, even though he has the foot speed and the hand speed to fight from longer range, he actually prefers to be closer to you to bust you up. Now let me tell you about Arthur Abraham. Arthur Abraham's slow moving, but he's one of the hardest punchers in the sport, right? I mean, pound for pound, I put him on the list with the Randall Baileys, the Saul Alvarez's, right? This guy can take you out. The Vladimir Klitschko's, right? I put him on the short list of very heavy-handed guys. More importantly, what's interesting with Abraham is he reminds me of Lennox Lewis in terms of just being smart and thinking ahead, right? He's always thinking ahead. So if you look at the rematch of the Edison Miranda fight, and that might be the best Arthur Abraham fight, you're going to see Arthur Abraham throwing what I believe were imaginary punches, right? He throws punches, fake punches, just to get Miranda in position for the punch he wanted to throw, right? In other words, I believe this is a Lennox Lewis trick. You throw punches just to see which way the guy goes. You aren't even interested in hitting him with those punches. You just want to see which way the guy goes. If you throw a punch and the guy goes to his left, then you set it up where you fake like you're throwing that punch. The guy goes to his left, you finish him off with the real punch you want to throw. In other words, Abraham, in my opinion, is a real cerebral fighter, but he's limited. He knows he can't generate power on the move. He knows he needs for you to be in front of him before he can open up on you. Let me point out, the Miranda fight I'm talking about is the rematch of a fight that, quite frankly, I thought Abraham lost. The first fight against Miranda, right? Abraham had to watch him for several rounds to figure out what Miranda was doing, right? If you look at Abraham against fighters like Jermaine Taylor, you'll see he took off the beginning of the round. He's a slow adapting fighter. He took off the beginning of the fight. Wasn't really able to open up until the later rounds of that fight, right? Abraham is a notoriously slow starter. What concerns me in this fight is the fact that Stieglitz gets so involved in the fight at times that his defense suffers. And a chess player like an Arthur Abraham only needs one opening, only needs for you to be lulled into a false sense of security in front of him for, let's say, 2.5 seconds before he unloads a one-punch knockout type of punch, right? This is a tough fight to bet on. I don't believe it's a main fight you should bet on, right? Don't expect to, pay the bills with this fight. But the way I'm playing it is I like Abraham 7-9 and 10-12, straddled against the over. I believe the over-under in this fight is something like 9.5 rounds, right? I like the over straddled against Abraham 7-9 and 10-12, right? What that gives you is both guys by decision. I believe the over-under odds are something like less than a -300. I believe Abraham 7-9 and 10-12 are at least 9-1 bets, right? So you can actually work the math and make it work. Understand the risk, though. If either guy gets a knockout before the 7th round, right, you lose the bet. If Stieglitz gets a knockout before the over, you lose the bet, right? You lose it all if those happen. I don't see either guy getting a knockout during the first 6 rounds of this fight. Stieglitz is just too fast. Stieglitz has faster hands than Jermaine Taylor, right? I believe that that's going to have Abraham confused and befuddled for the first 6 rounds of the fight. Also, if you look at Stieglitz's recent fights, all of them go the distance, right? Stieglitz at this level isn't a knockout puncher. More importantly, Arthur Abraham mentally is one of the toughest guys in the sport. You know that because he got his jaw broken by Edison Miranda, and he actually bit down, finished the fight, and won the fight. And keep in mind, the guy's jaw is broken in the middle of that fight. He had to survive several rounds with that broken jaw, right? Abraham has fought guys like Carl Froch, big hitters. And Abraham, of course, while he lost the Froch fight by a wide margin, he was never on the canvas, right? Abraham is a guy who stands upright, who's able to finish fights. So I don't see Arthur Abraham hitting the canvas for the first 6 rounds. In fact, I'd be surprised if Arthur Abraham gets knocked out at all. The only shot Stieglitz has of a knockout, in my opinion, is to overwhelm Abraham to the point where the referee feels that the match is futile and that Abraham has no chance of winning it. That can only happen during the over rounds. In other words, the 10th, 11th, or 12th rounds, right? Arthur Abraham in Germany always seems to get favorable treatment from the judges. I don't know why that is. I'm not saying illegal treatment, but the judges seem to like his style. I haven't figured out why, looking at the films. Quite frankly, Arthur Abraham, to me, isn't a guy who wins a lot of rounds. But I believe it's safer to take the over than to take Stieglitz by decision, even though if this fight goes to decision, I would think that Stieglitz would have a better chance of winning the fight than Arthur Abraham. So the bet I'm recommending is Abraham rounds 7-9, Abraham rounds 10-12, and the over 9.5 rounds as a 3-part straddle. Because of the odds being offered by the casino, you can pull that off, right? As I said before, though, just understand that if this fight for any reason whatsoever ends in the first 6 rounds, you lose it all. Okay, Stieglitz, if he fights on his back foot, I believe he surprises all of us and wins this fight by several rounds. But I suspect that you cannot take the fight out of the fighter. And I'm expecting Stieglitz to literally get too involved in the fight, to stand too much in front of Abraham, to throw too many combinations, to give Abraham an opportunity to look for openings. If that happens, I question Stieglitz's ability to come back from a knockdown, especially since he's been knocked out twice in his career. And once he got hurt by Libredo Andrade in the last knockout, I believe he got stopped by Barrio earlier. Once he got hurt by Libredo Andrade, he couldn't bounce back. Stieglitz is a guy who, if he gets hurt in a fight, badly hurt, he can't continue. He's not a guy I would expect to continue fighting on with a broken jaw like Abraham did the first fight against Miranda. I think this is an interesting fight. I see it getting interesting after the 6th round. Let me know what you think. Let me know your betting strategy. I'll save the rest of this Dwyer boxing news for a subsequent video. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com and dwyerboxingnews.com. Thanks for watching.